Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 62. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Welcome back to the podcast, Steelers Nation, for this Monday, this Victory Monday, as the Pittsburgh Steelers get some revenge on the Cleveland Browns after their loss from 2 weeks ago to win 27-14 Sunday afternoon at Acrisure Stadium. Pittsburgh now 10-3 on the season. Cleveland 3-10 and now officially eliminated from the playoffs. Pittsburgh has not officially clinched a playoff berth yet, but they move one step closer. We'll talk about some scenarios in which they can do that in Week 15 against the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Dave, good times. Keep rolling for Pittsburgh.
Boy, what a great morning to be alive, and that's the way that you take care of business at home against the Browns right there. Kind of started off a little bit slower than what you would have liked to have seen, but in the end, the better team won and did so in really more of a convincing fashion, especially in the second half there. 10 wins, Alex. They already have one more than what I predicted that they would have, and I think, did you predict them to win 10?
10 exactly, so they're on the nose.
Yeah, so this team's coming together really, really good, and obviously got a great test coming up here. The next for the final four games, got quite the gauntlet there with Philadelphia, Baltimore, Kansas City, and end it with the Bengals, obviously. So should be a fun show to talk about all that transpired on Sunday at Acrisure.
Yeah, so let's dive on in, and just quickly before we do that, the housekeeping. The inactive standpoint was interesting. There was some uncertainty, probably more so this week than past weeks, about who would not dress in this game. Pittsburgh did not make any elevations, and really what we didn't get to mention on the Friday show was George Pickens, and popping up with a hamstring injury on the Friday report was limited. It felt like he was going to be good to go for this game. Pittsburgh did not elevate and make any roster moves. Expectations reporting that came out Sunday morning, either like really late Saturday night into the morning, worked under the assumption that he would play. He would just test out that hamstring pregame, but ultimately George Pickens was inactive for this game. The first game he's missed in his 3-year NFL career, created some problems for the past game early we'll talk about. So ultimately Pickens was inactive. Corey Trice brought back from IR, but he was inactive. Dean Lowry was inactive as well. So just kind of give me your 30,000 foot view on the inactive decisions.
Yeah, I was surprised. Even though George Pickens has showed up on the Friday injury report, I kind of figured that he would work through that. And, obviously, you wouldn't have needed to elevate anybody from the practice squad, with all the wide receivers that they have on the roster there. But I was, and then you got into late, early morning Sunday morning, and I think Adam Schefter said the expectation was for George Pickens to test it out, and I thought he was going to go, and that's the way I predicted things to go. I thought Scotty Miller would be inactive. Had a pretty decent feeling that Corey Trice would be down, and that ended up, but I was a little bit thrown for a loop there, but I mean, it's easy to explain away. I had predicted Preston Smith might not get a helmet with Alex Highsmith back, but it was Alex Highsmith's first game back, and I didn't think that maybe they would have gone so thin on a running, on a team that you thought would probably have to run the football quite a bit here and make Dean Lowry the extra inactive there. But you can't explain it away too that Preston Smith could play more inside if you needed him to, and in fact I think he did in this game, and especially after Larry Ogunjobi left kind of early-ish with a groin injury there. But yeah, I was thrown for a loop there. I expected George Pickens to play, and then the obvious strap your tinfoil hat on kind of view of that was, well, was this sort of disciplinary related to grow up Pickens comments made by Mike Tomlin, and the war of words, if you will, from Pickens throughout the week, and maybe protecting Pickens from himself, if you will. But yeah, I gotta admit that I don't want to say subscribe to that, but the thought did kind of cross my mind, when the inactive list came out Sunday morning. But then when you get into post game and finding out at kind of how kind of late in the process teammates found out that George was not going to dress for this game, and yeah, it kind of it passed the sniff test overall. So Mike Tomlin said after the game didn't want a small problem to become a big problem with this, and I can understand that. So at any point did you think that maybe, just maybe, this was disciplinary related with Pickens?
I did not, and I still do not. As you said, the way that some players found out, apparently Pat Frymuth said his dad texted him, and that's how Pat found out that Pickens was not going to play in this one once the inactives officially came out. If it was for the war of words that occurred Friday, well, practice was already over at that point. Pickens
Right.
was already limited that day before he had that little back and forth with him and Greg Newsome kind of taking some subtle shades at each other. Well, Newsome was less subtle, Pickens was a little more subtle. So that doesn't even work chronologically. So no, I know people will go there, and if you believe it, you believe it. I can't change your mind. Not going to try to, but I don't believe this is. I mean, Pickens has done so many things before. He's never been benched for it, so I don't know why it would start now.
Yeah, and once again, yeah, it just crossed my mind once the inactives hit. But you further you get into this thing and all, I mean, it does make sense. And he did crop up on the Friday injury report, and there were the reports that he was going to try to test that thing early. So they just decided to err on the side of caution. I'll tell you this though about the whole that whole decision and him being inactive now. You're going to have kid and George Pickens is going to be chomping at the bit to get back on the field on Sunday against the Eagles now. And there's motivation obviously within that. He's probably not the happiest guy. I think the reports came out that he probably thought that he was good enough to play and all like that. And he's probably sad, not happy about missing a chance to get back at the Browns in this game and all. But this will be a motivated guy to willing to get back on the field this week against the Eagles.
And we'll see if he does. Hopefully he does. Hopefully it was a minor thing, but hamstrings are tricky. And Mike Tomlin was asked about that post game. Will Pickens play against the Eagles? And Tomlin said, I'll talk to you Tuesday about that. So we'll just have to wait and see what Tomlin has to say, follow the injury report and practice participation, and go from there. Just quick, as you noted, Dave, in-game injury standpoint, Larry Ogunjobi, the main takeaway here with a groin injury that happened in the first half. He came back, tried to play through it. And then I think around either late second quarter or post halftime, he did not return for good. And so that left Pittsburgh with only 3 healthy, true defensive linemen to their services, in Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton and Isaiah Loudermilk, because Montravius Adams remains on IR and Dean Lowry did not dress. And so I think that's an underrated part of this game, Davis.
Right.
You finish this game with 3 defensive linemen. Yes, as you said, Preston Smith kicked inside. They leaned on their 1-4-6, their Bronco package, with 3 outside backers, which they could utilize more because Cleveland was playing from behind in the second half. That did help minimize and mitigate things a little bit, but still, I assume snap counts for those guys were pretty high compared to what they usually play. So I just want to give kudos to that D line, because you're pretty thin with 3 of those guys, and Pittsburgh got through it and played really well.
Yeah, they ended up with the Bronco package and all, kind of mitigating that, as you said. Preston Smith ended up playing 19 snaps. Let's see, who else? Watt played 64. And well, the offensive lineman, I mean, Benton was the leader with the defensive lineman with 50 snaps, which was just 69% overall. And they had only got 9 out of Larry Ogunjobi, I think, before he had to leave for good. So the fact that Preston Smith is a bigger kind of a bigger body dude and was kind of a little bit used to, playing a more interior. And as smart for you to point out too, in the second half, the way they got the Browns down, you knew they were going to be in more passing situations, which lessened the likelihood of more runs, which played into the Steelers' hands of using that Bronco package a little bit more.
It does look like Loudermilk had to absorb most of the snaps. He played 50% in this game, 36 total defensive snaps, the second most of his NFL career, only behind a game as a rookie, which also, funny enough, came against the Cleveland Browns. And so one change there was Loudermilk, I think, picking up more of those, more so than Haywood or Benton. But still, those guys were just ready and conditioned, and thankfully there wasn't too much stress on those guys because of the game circumstance. But yeah, that's the note on Ogunjobi. We'll just have to see about his availability for the Eagles game.
The good news is hopefully you get Montravius Adams back this week, right?
Yeah, and then of course you can dress Lowry if Ogunjobi cannot play. All right, Dave, let's get into this game. Pittsburgh winning this one 27-14. Typical Steelers fashion, slow start, turned it on, the turning point of this game. And I don't want to do Ross McCorkle's work for him on his weekly article, but the Keanu Benton interception really changed the whole. Listen, people that don't believe in momentum, just watch this game, watch the Benton interception and how things changed from that moment onward. That was a game changer. And it felt like one of those games, Dave, where the offense starts slow. I think they're kind of scrambling, trying to adjust to, working without Pickens. You build a game plan around this guy for the entire week. You even think probably by Saturday into Sunday morning, he's probably going to play. We'll test it, but he should be good. And then he's out, and then you're trying to adjust. And so there was some pain along with that, but you get the big defensive play, the interception, the short field, turn that into 7, and you kind of ride that wave the rest of the game. That's my impression of how this game went from a big picture standpoint.
Yeah, that was definitely one turning point for sure. And what a play. Good job by Beanie Bishop coming off the edge and kind of disrupting that at first. And then having a guy like Keanu that had the wherewithal to kind of read that and sniff out where the back was and get himself in position there. It's one guy among like 4 guys over there, and you see these hands go up. We're going to have to start calling him Keanu Revis Bitten as far as that goes. But great interception there, nice return, set the Steelers up in great position for their first touchdown of the game, and really after that they never looked back.
Yeah, that was the big play there. So, Dave, do you want to start with the offense, the defense? Where do you want to kind of begin focusing the side of the ball on?
Yeah, we can start definitely on the offensive side of football here. I thought for the grading the quarterback play overall, first and foremost, you talk about who they were trying to defend. The most was obviously Myles Garrett, and they had to do a better job of dealing with him. And I think that the way that they ultimately helped mitigate that, along with they had a better chip help game overall with Myles Garrett, but the fact that Russell Wilson was getting the football out of his hands a lot quicker in this game obviously lessens the chance and time for Myles Garrett to get after you. Late last night, Next Gen Stats said Wilson's average time to throw was 2.64 seconds in this game and was his quickest of the season. He completed 10 of his 14 quick pass attempts under 2.5 seconds for 97 yards and a touchdown. So obviously the big takeaway there was, do a better job with your chips and all, and try to get the ball out much quicker in this game. And they succeeded at that. And Garrett, had still made his presence known in this game, but his lone sack didn't come until right at the end there. So I thought they did a good job of kind of not letting Myles Garrett take over this game.
Yeah, really after the first half of that Week 12 game, Myles Garrett was not a headline writer. He made some plays, and as you said, some of those came late. I mean, the sack was on the literal last drop back that Wilson had in this game where you're just taking it and just avoiding, a bad play becoming worse. And so that one kind of comes with a bit of an asterisk to it based on the game circumstance. But Yeah, I mean, just overall, I thought Pittsburgh had a better run scheme. I thought the pass game scheme early on was pretty, like I said earlier, messy, trying to feel out exactly how we're going to approach this, our first game ever without George Pickens, and dealing with trying to get other guys involved and schematically and the go balls that aren't as effective when it's not George Pickens out there. But I thought Pittsburgh got to have a better run game plan and stay on schedule a bit better and pass protect better. And it's a great set on Wilson getting the ball out quick. I mean, because typically he's been a guy that even throughout this year has been around his career average of 2.9, 3 seconds in terms of snap to throw. And to be at 2.6 is a really good reflection of maybe this team changing things a bit without George Pickens.
Yeah. Now look, now without a doubt, Russell Wilson made some fine plays in this game, and I pointed one out earlier. We try to go through this sometimes and say what was maybe the most hidden play in the game. That 3rd and 10 in the second, or in the third quarter there, that this team faced, and then Russell Wilson, avoiding pressure, climbing up towards the line of scrimmage, and then hitting Pat Freiermuth in the middle of the field to move the chains really was a huge play in this game. The Steelers obviously went on down and scored a touchdown to make it a 2-score game. That ended up being the nice play by Russell Wilson to Van Jefferson. A nice adjustment there by both those guys there. But I don't want to take away what Russ did in this game. I thought it was pretty muted overall, but it goes without saying he made a couple of key plays in this game that certainly helped this team secure victory.
Yeah, and Pat Freiermuth has really become a key target. And I know there's been so many questions this year about, Freiermuth, he's not getting involved. They're not targeting him. The numbers aren't there. And to an extent, that was true because they're in such a run-heavy offense and they've had leads. They haven't had to play from behind. They haven't had to throw at the rates that maybe this team has had to in past seasons. But 3 catches, 48 yards, a touchdown. This is the second most yards he's had in a 3-game stretch in his entire career. He's got 13 catches for $175 and 2 touchdowns over the last 3 games. And so they are keying him in big moments. I think Freiermuth and Wilson are showing really good chemistry in scramble drills. The touchdown against the Bengals last week, the big 3rd down conversion that led to his touchdown against Cleveland yesterday. They're working him in low red zone concepts. They ran a tight end screen to him that got, I think, 7 yards, down near the end zone yesterday. And so a couple weeks ago, we talked about Dave. This team is still scheming up ways to get Freiermuth involved, and that's, I think, has been really evident the last 3 games.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a couple of weeks ago about where they're going to, how they're going to go about trying to get Freiermuth a little bit more involved in this offense, and they certainly have done that. Great route by Freiermuth on the touchdown, and boy, what great pocket movement by just overall play design on that touchdown to Pat Freiermuth. I think Russell Wilson talked a little bit about that play after the game, did he not? And you have the rotating safety in there at the snap. I thought the Y'all 22 shows a good shot, the end zone of Russell Wilson moving that rotating safety back the direction that he came from. Freiermuth did a good job of widening, bending his route out and then back in, and then the motion and then the release of Jaylen Warren out to that right side cleared out that entire middle of the field there. So obviously they had saw something on tape. I think there might be a pretty good shot of a nice setup play, I think, of that earlier in the game. I'll have to go back and see if I can find that in there. But yeah, the fact is that Pat Freiermuth several weeks in a row now has been a big contributor to this offense, and they really needed this on a day that they did not have George Pickens.
I haven't seen the all 22 of that play yet. Do you think the intent was to never throw to Wilson's first read, which was Scotty Miller, and just move the safety? Or do you think that was a true second read progression where Wilson was going to take Miller if he liked the look, and then he didn't, and he came off of that and found Freiermuth open?
It might be a progression within there because he has to slide back the other way and reset his feet on there. So I think he just saw the rotation right after the snap. And just his look to his left anyway is going to move the safety. So I think it just probably just part of my guess would be it was a progression type play.
That was my feeling too. I felt like he wanted Miller on the out initially, but the corner wasn't really playing. He was playing off, but he wasn't giving ground at the snap. He was kind of playing flat footed. And so he came off of that and then found Frymouth. And you just watch the anticipation. I bet you Orlovsky's going to do a breakdown of that in terms of, one of those VR type things or something, because that ball is out before Frymouth is barely out of his breakdown the seam. That's a pretty tight window, even with a safety move in a red zone, tight area, single eye safety moment. And so that is just rip a laser in there to Frymouth. And that was a big time play.
Yep, it was.
And then just more of the same. Pittsburgh, 8 different receivers, 8 different eligibles, I should say, caught a pass in this game. You had 10 last week. You got 12 total over the past 2 games in terms of eligibles that have caught a pass. Everybody except for Connor Hayward. Poor Connor Hayward. He's the Rudolph in this scenario, not playing in the reindeer games. But you got 12 of your 13 eligibles on your 53 have caught a pass in the last 2 weeks, both wins. And Mike Williams and Scotty Miller with the new faces in yesterday's game. Williams not playing a ton more snaps, but getting more opportunities. Had the one OPI that was called back, but had that one great, spectacular one-handed catch to kind of make up for that later on, and had 3 catches for, I think, 36 yards or so in this game. So just more of the same. Without Pickens, you don't have a clear number one. So we're going to spread the ball around. We're going to run the ball. We're going to be efficient and just take what the defense gives you.
That was a tough catch by 2, or tough catches, I should say, by 2 people in that game. Scotty Miller along the sideline and Mike Williams as well too. And obviously coming off of Mike Williams getting a push off earlier in the game, the fact that those 2 guys came up with 2 big catches down the field. Scott, what can you say about Scotty Miller? Mike Tomlin praised him obviously after the game. This is a guy that supposedly found out last minute that he was going to dress for this game and to be ready and know the game plan and contribute. He had a couple of nice blocks, I think, in this game as well too, and played I think he played more of all the wide receivers. Mike Williams played the less amount of snaps in there. So kudos to Scotty Miller, who Mike Tomlin pointed out obviously earlier in the season because of his versatility. He obviously had to hold on one of those early place kicks after the punter went down. So yeah, good on them. I mean, to have these guys ready to contribute, not have your top dog in George Pickens, I think that really says a lot. The fact that they, for a second game in a row, were able to spread this ball around to the eligibles. Wonder when we talked last time. When was the last time you had 10 for 10 yards or more receiving? And what was the stat now over 2 games? How many people have caught passes?
12 different Steelers.
Okay, well, there you go. I guess that would make 22 over the last 2 games. I wonder when the last time that's happened.
Well, it's 12 different Steelers over the last 2 games. It was 10 different Steelers in the Bengals game. It was 8 different Steelers in the Browns game. But some of those are
that's
same.
What I mean. How many times have you seen it spread out to that large a group over 2 games?
Yeah, it probably doesn't happen too often. And so it is that real hand in the pile type of effort. The whole team, literally every guy on the 53 doing their part in this one. And that's kind of been the theme of what Arthur Smith's offenses have typically looked like. We're just spreading the love, and that's really come into focus the last couple games. Let's talk run game here. I thought Pittsburgh, like I said earlier, and I need to obviously dive into the all 22, but had a smarter game plan, a more focused game plan, a more interior rushing attack. And maybe the success wasn't always tremendous, but I just thought it was smarter overall. The first snap of the game, the running crunch, which is they've tried to run so often this year. It's always kind of been one missed block and one little detail that's failed, that's prevented a big run. They get 16 yards off of that, though, on a really well blocked play there for Najee Harris. Jaylen Warren just feels healthy right now, Dave. And obviously he battled a bunch of stuff early in the year, the hamstring in the summer, the knee early in the season, and then missed some time and came back and probably still wasn't fully himself. And I think really the last couple of weeks he's been fully healthy and playing like it. And that's really allowed him to be his typical Warren self, a power and contact balance, and just kind of really being a good energy bringer and tone setter, just a real, like I said, bowling ball with legs. It's just super tough to bring down. So you had him and Najee Harris, who continues to run pretty well. A little bit of Patterson, the fumble obviously was very costly from him, but I just thought smarter game plan and Warren being healthy were my kind of big 2 takeaways.
Boy, Warren was really had the hot hand, was a catalyst at one point. And I thought Najee ran pretty decent early. Najee obviously had the game sealing run there at the end. It was a good running game. I thought the guys up front did a good job overall. Tried to watch as much of Mason McCormick and Zach Frazier as I could this morning. I thought Mason played a really, really good game. You'll see some nice blocks from Broderick Jones in this one as well too. So yeah, I mean, you'd like a little bit more consistency with success overall, but when they did hit, there were a lot of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-yard type runs in this, and even one of those early ones, kind of that insert play with Van Jefferson, a great block by him. Great, great couple of blocks on that play. Open up a huge hole, and I think that was a 20-yard run in that situation.
The first one?
Yeah.
The first run, yeah, that was crunch. And so that was where they've been trying to run that. Those are those double wham blocks, and you get those second level guys flowing really quickly. It's gonna be that real quick hitting type of play that hasn't just they've run that. And I even wrote about it a couple weeks ago that maybe it's a time to scrap crunch until you can really get it detailed and dialed in, because there's always just been one thing wrong with it where somebody loses a block or somebody has a poor angle or whatever the case is where the play goes belly up, but that is as well blocked as you draw it up on the whiteboard the way that you practice it. So that was good to see. Yeah, if you look at the overall rushing numbers, I mean, they're not spectacular. Pittsburgh was, let me pull up the number here. What were they? 35 rushes, 120 yards, a touchdown. Doesn't look super impressive. A lot of volume there, but combined, Harris and Warren had 25 carries for exactly 100 yards and a touchdown. And so you look at your two main backs, those guys had good numbers overall. Patterson had 4 for 3 yards in the fumble. Russ had 6 rushes, which there's some kneel downs in there for 17 yards. So you take away some of the ancillary names, Russ and Patterson, you focus on Harris and Warren. Those guys had a good day.
Yeah, kind of weird to look at that nobody had more than 3 for 3 receptions in the game. Once again, Russ, kind of pedestrian numbers overall, but got him where they counted with the 2 touchdown passes. Great adjustment by both him and Van Jefferson on the touchdown pass. Kind of a read option, and the idea that Van Jefferson, I thought Tony Romo did a good job of pointing out that Van Jefferson made sure to drift back into more open space on that one. There was a good point out on his part there, but Russ made the key throws at when he needed to. I think he came out of this game with an adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat of just under 7, which is fine. Did not turn the football over. He did drill Mason McCormick in the back of the helmet with a doink early in the game there, and obviously wasn't very sharp early on, but I think he got acclimated to what they were trying to do. Once again, the TV tape shows a lot of adjustment, a lot of checks on his part throughout this thing, which was nice on top of it there. So it got more efficient as the game went on. They got better on third down as the game went on in this. And then, late in the game when they really needed to seal this one off, and you kind of worried, man, are they going to give them the ball? Well, they actually did give them the ball back again, but the muff punt by Tony gave the Steelers the ball right back, but you still had some clock to kill at that point, and they did it. They ran out the rest of the game at that point, which was good to see.
And what was Pittsburgh's red zone number in this one? I know
204, I think, because one of them came right at the 20, and they got credited for that touchdown right at the 20.
Okay, so how was it not 3 of 4? Am I missing something? There was the Jefferson touchdown, the Najee touchdown, the Freiermuth touchdown. Was
the end of the game?
Well, there's the end of the game, which was skewed a little bit. It counts as a red zone failure. They just obviously kneeled the ball. But how do they not have 3 red zone touchdowns? I'm seeing, like you said, 2 of 4 in the red zone. Does Pat's not count because it was at the 20? Is it just on the line there?
Maybe that's the one.
Yeah. So again, there's kind of some funny numbers in this one where I think the red zone offense was more successful than what the raw stats going to show. It's going to show apparently 2 of 4. I guess we're not counting the Freiermuth touchdown because you had the Najee from 1 yard, Van Jefferson for 10 yards, Freiermuth from 20. And then, as you said, that final kneel down there, where Pittsburgh just killed the last, 2 minutes of the clock on that Najee first down, which also Van Jefferson had a great crackback block on that play on Diabate. So that's a guy that obviously not a number two receiver, but has done some real grunt work in the run game throughout the season. That's why Pittsburgh really likes him. But really, I think you could sit there and say that Pittsburgh was, I don't know what, maybe 3 or 4 or something in the red zone in this game.
Right. Yeah. Especially when, I mean, you just kneeling out the clock at the end.
Yeah, those things hurt you, but obviously the game's over at that point. Any other thoughts here, just off the top here offensively? Yeah, not a ton of volume for the receivers, but Pittsburgh only threw the ball 26 times. And again, you spread the ball around when George Pickens isn't there. As I've always said, Pickens is the one consistent volume guy in this pass scheme. Everybody else is a little more popcorn. Pat Frymuth is kind of secondary, but he's still not going to get the volume that a George Pickens will. So you get other guys involved, get those guys rotating in, healthy run game. Third down success, Pittsburgh was 6 of 14. So it was tough early. There were some frustrations, I thought, early on third down, the 3rd and 1. Get a quarterback sneaky convert. That gets called back on a legal formation with, I think, Dan Moore not being covered up or something like that. And Pittsburgh certainly had some manageable third down situations early in this game. The one fade ball to Scotty Miller did not work. And so I think Pittsburgh started, 0 of 5 on third down, really ugly stuff. They got better as the game went on. But you do want to see those quicker starts. And we talk about that endlessly, and it probably is never going to happen. But you are concerned once it comes to facing these good teams coming up here, and certainly for the postseason, Pittsburgh's whole playoff failures centered around, to me, slow starts, being outscored. What is it, 66-0 in the first quarter of their last 5 playoff losses. And so you really can't afford those slow starts to play catch up for the last 3 quarters in the postseason.
Didn't Russell Wilson have the first I know the first third down conversion was Russ, wasn't it? With his feet. Was it second one as well?
I'll have to, in terms of actual conversions, I will need to.
I know one of them was. I'm trying to remember if they were. I think he had 2, and I'm trying to remember if they were back to back. But regardless, he did. Oh, what'd you think about him on one of those keepers on the read option to the left side there? I told you that maybe that was something that they should examine if Myles Garrett doesn't surf that thing correctly, and they caught Myles with his pants down on one of them trying to trying to crash down a little bit too quick, and Russ went and got some extra yards in on that one there. But yeah, I thought Arthur Smith did a good job of calling the game overall, and especially in the second half of this thing. And once again, I think the big thing there was getting a couple of those wide receivers, Mike Williams and Scotty Miller, making plays down the field for you was absolutely huge. I think that third down conversion, you talk about one catalyst being the Keanu Benton interception. It's obviously important to finish that drive out with a touchdown like they did. But in the third quarter there, to convert the way Russell Wilson converted that third down, 3rd and 10, by avoiding pressure, stepping up and hitting Freiermuth in the middle of the field, that was a big play in this game. Because once again, they ended up, I think Jaylen Warren started to get a little hot right after that as well. And you went in and punched that drive in for a touchdown. And I just, once again, we try to point out as many hidden plays sometimes as we can. That 3rd and 10 conversion was a fairly big play in this game, and at that point they never really looked back. They seemed to move the ball pretty well overall.
It was massive, Dave. Yeah, 3rd and 10, early third quarter at Pittsburgh's 33. Wilson to Freiermuth for 21 yards. That scramble drill, tough catch, good coverage by Newsome. Freiermuth makes it a couple plays later, end up with that Van Jefferson touchdown. So, yeah, that was a real turning point. You're right, and good call on the read option stuff. My thought was slide and just don't get hurt, Russ. It's always my thought when I see Russ running. But for the first third down conversion, unfortunately, like I said, took a while, but it came in with 8:57 left in the second quarter. 3rd and 1, Russell Wilson left guard for 6 yards, a read option. And then later on that same drive, a 3rd and 1 quarterback sneak that converted, that eventually ended in the Chris Boswell 54-yard field goal. So, yeah, again, Pittsburgh was something like 0 of 5 on third down to start. And they weren't because they were backed up in these like 3rd and 13 situations. There was a 3rd and 3 incomplete to Mike Williams on a deep ball on the opening possession. Pittsburgh, by the way, still not scored a touchdown on the opening drive this entire season, gone 13 straight games. That matches the career long or longest drought under Matt Canada. Next series, 3rd and 1, you convert. Or maybe they didn't. They said no game, but I think they would have converted, but that gets called back on penalty. 3rd and 6, incomplete. Settle for a field goal. Next drive, 3rd and 4, incomplete. They also call Russ for intentional grounding, which felt a little ticky-tack, but either way, they were punting no matter what. Next possession, 3rd and 1. That was the incompletion to Scotty Miller, left side. Next possession was a 3rd and 14. So that's where you are in 3rd and long. Russ scrambled, they punted. You get the idea. Pittsburgh struggling on those possession downs. Fortunately, the defense really stood tall, and then the offense got going. And so they probably finished, 6 of 9, I think it was, on 3rd down the rest of the way. So improvement there, but again, a slow start.
Right. Hopefully we'll be able to get past that. Boy, Philadelphia would be a great time to start that in this tough game. Any one of these upcoming games against in these final 4 games to see this team start scoring some more touchdowns. They've only had 3 first quarter touchdowns, right?
I believe so, whatever the number was coming into this game, because they did not have one in this game. So it's not been. Are the Eagles? Are they a pretty good starting team? I'll have to check. Something told me they are, but maybe not.
I think I read a quote that I had bookmarked now to go back with the Eagles up next, saying that the Eagles' bad start on, was it a defensive player or offensive player there? I think it was a defensive player said maybe they're bad starts because offenses aren't most opposing offenses they're seeing aren't showing the same identity right out of the chute or something along those lines. I'll have to find that tweet from last night from one of the players that spoke to the media. It caught my eye. I meant to go back to it, but I didn't. But look, the Steelers are 0-10 in their last 10 visits to Philadelphia on the road, and the last one in 1965 on the road in Philly. That was before even Uncle Dave was born. But maybe Russell Wilson's the kryptonite, because I think Russell Wilson is 4-0 in regular season play. 4-0 including the playoffs for his career in Philadelphia, and 6-0 all time against Philadelphia. So you got 2 kind of interesting streaks here. One with the Steelers not being able to win in forever in Philadelphia, and then Russell Wilson, who's had all the success in his career in Philadelphia there. But back to the fast starts. And when you get into the playoffs specifically, you got to need these faster starts, it feels like.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm wrong in record time, at least in my very quick looking up. I'm not crunching the numbers here, but since week 11, the Eagles, which is their last 4 games, the Eagles have scored 3 points in the first quarter, it looks like. So they are not starting fast. Pittsburgh's not starting fast. And so we'll see if either team can break that, if we're going to see a 0-0 first quarter. It'll be something to talk about throughout the week. And speaking of streaks, Pittsburgh keeping streaks intact with the win over the Browns. The Browns have still not swept Pittsburgh in the regular season since 1988. Pittsburgh has won now 21 straight regular season home games against the Cleveland Browns. Last loss in the regular season came in 2003. And so the Browns wanted to play spoiler. They wanted to break that streak, all those kind of personal goals. They will have to wait at least another year.
Yep. 21 regular season games now, and 1988 was the last time they swept the Steelers. So look, put them, coming off that disappointing loss a couple of weeks ago there, to get the win and officially eliminate the Browns from playoff contention. That's a good feeling. That's called taking care of business.
By the way, Pittsburgh, I had this for Stat of the Weird this morning, 11-0 when they play the rematch game against Cleveland, in which they lost the first game. So whenever they lose the first game, they are undefeated whenever they play the take 2, and that streak continues yesterday.
Evidently Jerry Dulac saying that the expectation is that George Pickens will miss the Eagles game. How about that?
Okay, yeah, looks like that's coming across the wire right now. Again, Mike Tomlin will speak to the media on Tuesday. Apparently, Dulac saying grade 2 hamstring injury, typically 2 weeks. So he says, quote, "I don't think they're expecting him to play in Philadelphia either. And then you got some short weeks on the other side of that. You got the Sunday to Saturday game, the Saturday to Wednesday game. And so that timeline gets crunched up even more. But we'll just have to wait and see and start by hearing from Mike Tomlin on Tuesday.
All right. Interesting.
Just a note for the offensive line, you touched on it, but I thought the O-line did a nice job, better communication, just better execution overall. The physicality was always there for Pittsburgh, which it has been throughout the season, but just felt like they were more detailed and just better overall, clearly, than the first Browns game.
Well, say that again. I was looking.
No, you're fine.
Do like stuff.
I was just saying the offensive line. Just agreeing with you that they played well. Garrett was held in check, and I just thought better execution, better game plan across the board in this one. I think for the entire front five than the first Cleveland game.
PFF didn't have their grades out when we started this. I kind of got the feeling Mason McCormick might be the highest graded one in here. Looks like let's just not, once again, people listening, we don't take these, they're just fun to look off to see what maybe some of these grades match up with the tape and all like that. No, they've got Mason McCormick at a 40.1 grade for this game.
Anything in run blocking versus pass protection?
Both of them are pretty low. They've got his run blocking at 40.7 and 48.7 on his pass protection there. So I've watched about 12 play. I've watched the good ones, the ones that stuck out. So I'm going to have to watch the bad ones on the all 22 once we get the full reels downloaded here and see how that. I would have bet you, based on what I saw, I would have bet you dollars to donuts that he probably would have been one of the top rated offensive linemen. But they have him actually as their worst Steelers offensive lineman for this game. So I'm interested to drill that down. The top offensive lineman was Dan Moore Jr. Not so great in the pass blocking, but had a solid run blocking grade. Next up would be Broderick Jones. Once again, not good in the pass blocking department. Okay in the pass blocking. Zach Frazier kind of middle of the road in both there, and Isaac Seumalo, a better pass protector than run blockers. So we'll have something to chew on to see on the rest of the all 22 how that matches up with some of these grades. That felt really low on Mason McCormick. I'm surprised by that. Jaylen Warren ended up as the offense best graded player. Scotty Miller second. Russell Wilson third. Freiermuth fourth. Connor Hayward, who had a nice block on that split zone touchdown run by Najee Harris. I think he had two other nice blocks in that game as well, too. So that doesn't surprise me. He had a 73.6 run blocking grade there. So that's at a glance real quick about about some grades. But I thought, as a whole, when they hit on the runs, they hit. And obviously when they didn't, there was some negativity involved.
But less negativity. I don't know the exact number, but I had the stat and I researched it super late. I think it was on Saturday, but in that Week 12 game against Cleveland, excluding even kneel downs, Pittsburgh had, 13 runs that lost yardage or gained 0 yards. That was the most by any team in a given week the entire season. I don't know what Pittsburgh had in this game, but I promise you it wasn't 13 of those if you take away the kneel downs at the end. And so what my whole focus for this game, Dave, was frankly just a smarter run game scheme, avoiding that negativity, and I think Pittsburgh achieved that, and that maybe wasn't the obvious reason why Pittsburgh won, but it really kept them on schedule, gave the offense some more fluidity, and ultimately won the game.
5 explosive plays by the offense in this game without George Pickens.
And I assume in the talk stat, considering they won turnover battle 3-1, I bet you they came out on the right side of the talk stat.
Oh, yeah, because I think Cleveland only had, 2 explosive plays in this one? 2 or 3. Let me see if I've got
the Judy touchdown.
Yeah, which was the longest touchdown they have allowed on the season. They only allowed 2 explosive plays in this one on defense: the 35-yarder to Judy and the pass deep down the middle to Moore early in the game on a 2nd and 10 for 20 yards.
So they were +5 in talks because they won 5-2 in explosive plays and 3-1 in turnover battle.
Yes.
So good place to be. Going to win most games when you're +5 in the talks. And Pittsburgh, funny enough, won the turnover battle 3-1 in the last matchup, lost that game, But generally, when you win the turnover battle 3-1, you're going to win the game, and that proved true on Sunday.
Right. And Pat Frymuth is responsible for two of the explosive plays, the third down pass we talked about, and then obviously the touchdown pass. Najee had that early 20-yard run, was one of them. And then the other two were Mike Williams and Scotty Miller down left side of the field.
All right, let's go over to the defensive side of the football, Dave. And just overall, I thought a good effort. It's hard to have any major complaints in this one. I thought, the touchdown early, Pittsburgh took a punch in the face and then counterpunched, and I thought had better rush lane integrity and just containing the pocket better throughout the rest of the game. The run game was not a big factor for the Browns in this one. Pittsburgh continues to win in those weighty downs, those third down situations. And again, the story of the game is takeaways. You force those and you capitalize on your chances. That one, it's just hard to lose those games when you can make those big impact plays.
Yeah, what do we say? You be patient enough. Jameis is probably going to give you one or two of them during the game, and he certainly did in this one. And the late one, kind of aimed it, I think, and overthrew. And James Pierre with the takeaway there.
Yeah, just like we all expected, the interceptions from this game came from Keanu Benton and James Pierre, as we all talked about during the week in this one. So, but you take it wherever you can get it. Just like offensively, take whoever can get you those receptions and put your hand in the pile. Benton making a great play, talked about how that one really shifted momentum, and then Pierre capitalizing on that overthrow. Pittsburgh's in cover 3. Browns are trying to run 4 verts. Winston misses. Pierre breaks on the ball, makes a great catch and good finish. Even presence to get up immediately and start running to try to get whatever you can get. Pittsburgh's got a bunch of interception return yards this year. They got to be near the tops in the league, in part because they pick off a bunch of passes, but they also do a good job post-interception to block and try to get extra yards and gain grass. And so I did think Cleveland objectively was winning field position early because of some of the 3 and outs that Pittsburgh had and just the way the ball was bouncing. And I thought Pittsburgh's defense really rose early, the touchdown aside, to win those moments, because I don't know exactly where Cleveland was starting all their drives, but it was consistently in favorable situations, and Pittsburgh really was able to make some stops and not let the Browns completely benefit and turn great field position into points.
Well, what did we talk about about that last game? They did a good job on third down. They did a good job on third down in this game. Just 2 of 13 for the Browns in this one. Obviously, a very positive. And we had also said they were 4 for 4 on fourth down in that first game, and in this one they were. What were they? 3 of 4 in this one. So not as, but they had to go for it. They were down. They were forced into some situations, but the 1 fourth down that they did not make in this game ended up being a big one. Landon Roberts blew that one up. Landon Roberts seemed like he had quite a game in this one. Earlier in the game, he blew up Ethan Posick when Ethan, the center, was pulling over to, that would have been Ethan's left side. Landon helped blow that play up, had the big fourth down stop. I thought Landon Roberts, really shining this. I thought Deshaun Elliott had another good game. And yes, I know he gave up the touchdown pass to Njoku, but I mean, that was a hell of a damn catch, man. And it was good coverage overall. Kind of an out and up, I believe, on that one for Njoku, and Deshaun Elliott seemed to be in pretty good position overall. But Njoku went up and took the football away in that one. Thought he had a strong game. I know T.J. Watt, maybe statistically, what did he officially, T.J. Watt, get in this game? 4 total tackles. He did have 2 quarterback hits, 1 tackle for loss. Next Gen Stats, though, had last night on Watt was, let me see if I can pull that up.
4 pressures, I think you'd said.
6 pressures on 39 pass rushes in week 14 against the Browns, at 15.4% pressure rate, tying his season high in pressures. He generated 4 of his pressures across 29 matchups against Jack Conklin, after Conklin held Watt to just 1 pressure on 24 matchups in week 12. They go on to say Watt has now generated 11 pressures over the last 2 weeks after entering week 13, having generated just an 8.9 8.9% pressure rate, his lowest since 2018. So he impacted this. Alex Highsmith came out to shoot real strong in this one as a pass rusher. Got his sack off of a twist and stunt inside there early. Just seemed like he was continually having pressure. I think you even see, to know that he's back, I think you see a couple of those Dwight Freeney spin moves inside. Unfortunately, one of those let Jameis Winston out of the pocket, but he is moving good on that ankle. Thought he played a good game overall. And what was another thing we talked about, this defense, things to look out for in this game that ended up, the few of the key plays that they had in this game, the Browns, was letting Jameis Winston extend the play. Obviously, on the Judy touchdown, that was a situation where they let him out and he made a play, and they kind of lost sight of where they were kind of on the field, I think, in the secondary in that situation there on that touchdown there. And then Jameis, I think, maybe one or two others escape in the pocket, made a play, and I think twice with his legs as well too. But I think overall there was kind of a bend a little bit and don't break. No, the Browns missed 2 field goals in this game, which certainly helped the Steelers out here. But what they did on 3rd down and that key 4th down stop, really helped tilt things in their direction.
Talk about tone setting, and Landon Roberts is the definition of a tone setter. And just built, guys like him and Elliott are built for AFC North ball. And even on that 4th and 1, Pittsburgh was not in good personnel. I don't know what happened. There was some issue where they didn't feel like they could sub. They were in nickel, and the Browns were in this like pony 22 package, and Pittsburgh should not have been able to get that stop there. And the Browns had this weird run wide, and Roberts read it and bolted downhill, made a great open field stop. Pittsburgh was not in a good situation there, and Roberts bailed them out of it. TJ Watt, first play of the game, blowing up Nick Chubb. Trying to leave TJ Watt unblocked from the backside on gap schemes. Bad idea. Most teams have tried it. Most teams have failed trying to run that effectively. So those were just some of the tone setting moments of the game. Just to go back quickly to my field position point, and maybe it wasn't super obvious, but I'll just kind of read some of the starting drives for Cleveland in this game. And I think the general trend was, Pittsburgh getting those stops. Opening drive, Browns starting at their 17, ended in a punt, so that's not good field position. Next drive on a touchback at their 30, that ends in a touchdown. Next drive, they start at their own 37-yard line, that ends in a punt. Next drive, they start at their own 38, that ends in a 3-and-out punt. Next drive, they started at their own 47. That ends in a 1-play interception by Keanu Benton. Next drive, they start at their 30. That ends in a punt. And then to open up the second half, that was that long run back by Jerome Ford. They started at the Steelers 39 to open up the third quarter, and they end with no points on that Hopkins missed field goal. And so I just thought Pittsburgh handled the field position battle not well, in the sense of they didn't win it, but they were getting stopped despite having short fields, and that was really critical.
What did they rush for in that game? 104 yards, and Winston had 28 of them overall. So if you take the 2 backs, 22 carries for 76 yards?
Yeah, looks like it. Should have had one pop or two, but nothing that killed you.
Right. None of the receivers had more than 64 yards, and 20 or 30 of those, 35 of those for Judy came on the touchdown and all. So, yeah, I mean, they just, opportunistic. Cam Hayward, nice sack in this one. Highsmith with a sack. Who else? Those were the only 2 sacks, weren't they?
Well, Hayward had 2. Highsmith had 1.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
He got himself a pair.
What about Cam? Yeah, go ahead. Cam Hayward, jeez.
I know at this point we all know he's having a great season. I mean, and should be celebrated, but we all understand that point. He is back, and all the concerns about what kind of player would he be off the injuries, 35, the contract, those are all gone. No one's talking about those anymore. But we need to talk about how historic this season is for Cam Hayward. I have an article up on the site this morning. To be an age 35-year-old interior defensive tackle, since the stat became official in 1982, the only age 35 D tackle to have more sacks in the season than Kim Hayward's 8 was Steve McMichael in 1992 with the Bears with 10.5. So Hayward could set the record for somebody his age. You look at the history, typically age 35 and up for D tackles, those guys fall off. John Randall, Warren Sapp, Leroy Glover, etc. Those guys, start to fall off a cliff at that age. And for Hayward to do what he's doing, not only is it great for the team and just great, individually for the season, but it is stuff that you rarely see for his age at that position. And I had this thought last night. Some people have mentioned, could he be DPOY? He's not going to win it. But what about comeback player of the year? Off an injury, that's now the scope of the award, right? It has to be injury based. It can't just be you sucked last year and now you're a good player. Why is Kim Hayward not getting consideration for comeback player of the year?
That's a good point. I mean, it is a monumental, a very impressive season for him. We've had this conversation heading into this season is, kind of borderline Hall of Famer, right? Could he do something in his final year or two or three that puts him over the top there? He's got to be a Pro Bowler, right? Even though we know that's not, even though that's a fan, fan, popularity contest, but he's got the popularity where he definitely, especially on the AFC side.
There's Chris Jones. I don't know who else. Right? There's some good D tackles out there, but he deserves it at the very least, no question. All right.
And what about first team All Pro?
You can certainly make that case. I don't have the whole list in front of me. Again, Chris Jones will garner things, but I don't know. I don't know what the argument against Kim Hayward would be for that first team All Pro slot. One of those two.
What is his All Pro resume so far?
He's got a couple of them.
3-time All Pro. So this would make a fourth. Was he first team? I would imagine he was first team in those other ones, right?
Yeah. 3-time first team, 1-time second team. Okay. But the 3-time is a first team All Pro, correct?
All right. So if he's first team All Pro, Pro Bowl again this year, how many sacks does he have?
8 currently.
Counting. He could get a couple more obviously this season. This season might kick in that door for him as far as, certainly more worthy. Walter Payton Man of the Year, blah, blah, blah. All this is starting to add up in a good direction for him this season.
I forget the exact stat that I had, but it was something like every D tackle with his kind of baseline resume of 5 or 6-time Pro Bowls, 3-time All Pros with 90 plus sacks are in the Hall of Fame. He's at 88.5 right now. Let's safely assume he'll get to 90 by the time his career ends, probably by the time the season ends. I think my whole thought was a couple years back was like one more All Pro, one more Pro Bowl, get to 90 sacks, and that's going to be your Hall of Fame resume. He's about to check those boxes.
All right. It's a great season for him. He shows up every week on tape. That sack, I want to see the other angle of it. Only have the one end zone angle. I'll have the other one later today, but it looked like a little bit more of a long arm in there on, I think, Batonio.
Could he lead this team in sacks? TJ's got 9.5. Cam's got 8. He's right there.
Good, yeah.
Wouldn't that be something?
That would. Good season. Monumental, as you said.
Just the one negative play, the touchdown to Judy. What was your take? Deshaun Elliott spoke afterwards. They didn't plaster. They was not inverted, but they spun Minka down. Elliott's the post safety. Then Elliott floats up top on the scramble drill. Is that on him? Is that on Minka? Minka kind of felt like he lost his guy, but he wasn't playing the deep center either. It's hard to tell in those situations on scramble drills whose responsibility and what their kind of rules are. But what was your takeaway? Who might be at blame there?
Yeah, it feels like maybe Minka was floating a little bit more over to that far side and just kind of lost the guy.
Yeah, my first thought was Elliott for leaving the post safety spot and kind of getting up to the sideline, but then I watched it again and I thought it's not Minka's responsibility to cover that deep middle, but he did kind of was starting to follow Judy and then got his eyes in the backfield and then kind of lost Judy. I think he kind of felt like Judy was going to keep coming across and Judy went vertical. Yeah, it's hard to tell, but it might be on Minka.
Not that you take it to the bank, but PFF has it on Minka.
Okay. Yeah, those things, I'm a little contentious with the targeting system, but
it wasn't an extend to play type situation, but you do have to plaster better and find the middle of the field for sure in that situation.
Yeah, so it goes back to Minka, where I'm not trying to be on the trade the guy bandwagon or anything like that, but you have seen him make some miscues in coverage that I don't think he's made in seasons past. You look at the last week against the Bengals on Chase, where he wasn't in man coverage on Chase, but I think was supposed to help funnel things to him, and he gets his eyes in the backfield and loses sight of Chase behind him and can't feel the route, gives up a touchdown, and this week to Judy. So yeah, it's fair to say he's not playing like Minka Vol. Doesn't mean he's playing poorly. I mean, I think he's been a great tackler, and there's a lot of intangible, intrinsic value to his game. But there are more blips in coverage than what's happened in years past.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm
What
not
else?
ready. I'm not ready to toss him out with the bathwater,
Yeah,
though.
no, of course not. But it is fair just to evaluate his play
Mhm.
as it is, and we can have that nuanced take. And I think we've both done that for sure. What else here defensively? Yeah, the edge rushers, Highsmith. Just happy to have all those guys healthy, available in this game, and TJ Watt. Herbig. Just have that really strong rotation. And you talk about playing the Chiefs here in a couple of weeks. You look at that left tackle situation for Kansas City. It's a real mess right now. DJ Humphrey struggles, got the hamstring injury. You talk about who's going to maybe help decide that one if Pittsburgh can finally beat Patrick Mahomes. It might be Highsmith and Herbig on that left tackle spot.
Yeah, and didn't they had Humphreys go down
Mm-hmm.
late last night with a hammy or something like that, and he's like
Yep.
their third tackle, and going to be interesting to see how that. It's still got a couple of games until you get to them, though. But let's see defensively, what else? There are a couple of some mistake. Beanie's got to be a little bit better, keeping his feet moving out in space. I think when it comes to tackling. Patrick Queen, I think, missed 2 tackles on one play. Now, Patrick Queen did have a nice coverage snap against, was that Njoku, I think, that he
Mm-hmm.
cut up underneath and had a very, very nice pass breakup on that. Trying to think who else. I thought Peyton Wilson was good out in space tackling. Uh, who else? I thought Benton played a good game top to bottom overall in this one. We had talked about how Benton normally gets off to good starts, but doesn't sustain. I thought he did a much better job sustaining. I thought Loudermilk could have played better against the run. Trying to think who else need to talk about here.
I mean, that covers it.
Joey Porter bonehead
Yeah.
penalty. You know,
Yeah, can't take those. I mean, luckily there was no DPI, but there was that unnecessary roughness, which was just they always get the retaliator. Happened to Cleveland on the other side. What I think later, I think a Fetty got called for one on a Winston sack, but yeah, they always can get that second guy in.
all right.
Anything else here defensively? Yeah, just sound and stout. That one Judy blip aside. I mean, other than that, in the late touchdown to Njoku, which, like you said, was a great catch by Njoku. The Browns really didn't have much. Winston was pretty erratic. His accuracy early on, I think at one point he was 8 of 20. He was missing all over the place. Thought Pittsburgh would get some more interceptions off him, frankly, just with how kind of erratic and playing from behind Cleveland was. But I'll take the 2 picks for sure.
Absolutely.
And,
And this,
and just quickly should note that Beanie ended up kind of going back to his old role. He was playing over Cam Sutton most of the time, and so they kind of switched back. Although Sutton played in dime like he had been before, and Beanie was mostly the nickel corner. But there were a couple of third downs where Pittsburgh wasn't their nickel defense, and Sutton came in. So there were a couple maybe specialty situations where they still put Sutton in over Beanie at nickel, but Beanie got back basically his normal snap count.
let's see, Sutton 13 snaps in this one. Beanie played 58 in this one. Is that a season high for him?
I'd have to check. I'll check now for you. The Browns had a fair amount of snaps overall in this game. They had
Right.
67, and so sometimes that's a product of just how many snaps your defense is out there on the field for. I bet you there's probably somewhere where he played maybe more. He played 60 against the Giants. This was second most. He played 58, as you said, against the Browns. Yeah, Pittsburgh leading on that 146. I don't have the exact charting on that, but probably a good 15 snaps of that 146 with Preston Smith kicking inside, a little bit of TJ Watt off ball work. They even ran a 1-5-5 with one down lineman, 5 linebackers. So it was the 3 edge guys and the 2 off ball guys. So it's Queen and I think it was always Peyton Wilson out there on the field. So a couple different wrinkles may have been to help kind of give their D line some breathers, considering they were down to just 3 in that second half. But yeah, a couple new defensive wrinkles and packages.
All right. 2 explosive plays allowed. The Browns were 2 of 13 on third down. The Browns were 1 of 3 inside the red zone, and you took the football away. You had 3 sacks, and you took the football away, what, 3 times?
2 times defensively, 1 on special teams.
Right, right.
That's how you
So
win games.
that's
sure.
how you win games, especially when you're not turning the football over and you're getting explosive plays, and you're 6 of 14 on third down after a slow start. That's exactly how you win games.
And again, the Benton interception to me was just a game changer across the board. And he's been great in the screen game. I'm going to have to do a compilation, probably a video on him and this whole defense. I've been meaning to do it for weeks on weeks now, but they have done a great job with the running back screen game, tight end screen game. Think back to the Ravens game where Benton chased down likely at the end of the first half that helped wrap him up, that allowed Queen to go for the punch out that he ended up recovering. So Benton has been making impact plays. It's crazy he's got more picks than sacks this year. It's crazy he's got more picks than Minka, but I've had my critiques of Benton. He's had a good year overall, but there's things to work on. But hustle and effort and screen game and ID, none of those have ever been questioned with Keanu Benton.
All right, how about time for a Steelers Depot 30 and 30 for 30? This means more to me because I thought it was interesting that you dove this down. But what if I told you that the Steelers and the Browns both had the football for exactly 30? What if I told you that the Steelers and the Browns both had the football for exactly 30 minutes on the nose on Sunday in Week 14? Tell the people what you found there.
Yeah, you talk about a stat of the weird. Exactly. You cut the sandwich right down the middle, 30 minutes on the dot for Pittsburgh in time of possession, 30 minutes on the dot for Cleveland in time of possession. I think time of possession stats go back to the early 90s. Pittsburgh has never had 30 on the nose before. The last 2 teams to have that 50-50 split came in 2021 with the Rams and the Vikings. So a weird quirk means nothing, but we love our weird stats, and that is a good one.
Getting more into special teams play here. What can you say about they got to bring Ben Skoranek back somehow? That guy's just absolutely fantastic. He gives you more on offense as a blocker, and he can definitely catch a pass if you need him to. His special teams play is just absolutely fantastic. Just a good foot. He goaded Tony into a penalty to throw the football at him. Tony might be looking for work on Tuesday morning coming out of this game. Had the bonehead penalty, throwing the football at Skoranek, and then the muff at the end of the game. Even though they weren't going to probably win that game, they gave themselves no chance to win the game after he muffed that punt late in the game there. So just want to make sure I pointed that out. Special teams was kind of hit and miss, it felt like, overall, especially that opening second half kickoff, right?
Yeah, kick coverage has been poor the last 2 weeks. Was not good against the Bengals and gave up the 56-yarder to open up the half against Jerome Ford. A couple of missed tackles. I don't know if it was really a breakdown in terms of gap in integrity, but just some missed tackles that obviously cannot happen. And again, Pittsburgh had a good defensive stand, and Cleveland did not get any points out of that off the Hopkins missed field goal, which just makes you value Chris Boswell all the more. I mean, he's just been fantastic. He's now got 36 makes this year. The next one will be a record in Steelers history, breaking his own previous record. And so still on pace, I believe, to break the single season record. I mention it all the time, but it's a favorite stat. I'm waiting to see if it'll happen. Again, I know you love to not break it and turn field goals into touchdowns, yada, yada. But Boswell, the stat at Acrisure, he is 18 of 19 at Acrisure this year. They only missed that 62-yarder at the half against the Chargers. Opposing kickers are 8 of 14 at Acrisure Stadium this year. Hopkins missing 2 yesterday. And so that is a clear difference in Pittsburgh getting victories.
Did you see the Easter egg on Chris Boswell on that kickoff return?
I hadn't gone back and looked, but hit me. I'm all for it.
He tried to trip him.
Did he?
Yeah.
As in, like, he threw out his leg?
Yeah, he threw his leg out. Is that finable?
He didn't actually trip him, though, right?
No.
Nah, he probably won't get fined then.
Okay. Go back and look at the TV tape on that. Stop the frame with his got his leg out there trying.
Did he like a Pickens trip in that Week 12 game? We kind of slyly put his leg out, or was it pretty obvious?
It felt kind of pretty obvious on this one. You tell
Okay.
me when I didn't, I haven't fine tooth combed everything. I just went one rewatch last night and picked through the all 22 this morning here. So let me know if I'm right or wrong on Wednesday.
Now, if it was obvious, as you say, it probably was right. So I respect it. You got to try to get that guy down, have you can. Obviously, did not work. Also, just quickly, punting the ball is a fine, right? Because Pickens was never officially announced as a fine for that. And if Frymouth punted the ball into the second row in this one, you get tagged for that, right? You have to.
I thought so. I thought you did.
Okay, but it's not on
It
the
wasn't
game day
announced.
operations page. Okay, it's one of those like off the books fines, right? Because the NFL, it's not on the operations fine page on the NFL website, correct?
Yeah.
For Pickens.
Right. It was not on there for that. Right.
Okay, but I imagine Frymouth will do it as well. Apparently, he said somebody had to get fined. I guess that was. I'm not sure what the story is there backing George Pickens, but anyway, just speaking of trips and fines and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Boswell, fantastic. 11 makes from 50 plus yards, just insane. Waitman, great bounce back game. Maybe a little bit rougher early, but two booming punts near the end of this game. Averaged 53 yards overall, along with 60. The one that turned into a muff, and so that's a guy that has not had to punt much lately. And so I'm sure he was happy to get some redemption, get some work in, and probably just good for him. Probably still feeling that shank against the Browns 2 weeks ago on his one punt that really hurt the team and contributed to the loss. And so to get back against Cleveland, to have a good game overall, you saw his emotional reaction, how hyped he was after the Tony fumble there. So good for Corliss Waitman.
Austin had a nice, I guess as long as 11. Didn't that one come back past midfield on one of them on a return?
Yeah, because it was. I think the Browns were backed up, but yeah, I think Pittsburgh got the ball like the Browns 40. Pittsburgh did allow a couple of decent returns to Tony when he wasn't doing dumb stuff, and so the coverage units overall have to tighten up. They're healthy. There's no excuse across the board, but not even health can be an explanation for things. But yeah, Dave, I am shocked Kadarius Tony did dumb stuff on a football field.
He was trying to explain it away too, wasn't he? Especially that throwing the football at Skoranek. He was on the sideline trying to say, "You see what happened was." But all right. The only bad thing about this game is they didn't throw a 40 burger up on him. That was about the my only complaint.
Yeah, at least you got to 27, despite not having your best offensive weapon in George Pickens. So to do that, and you could have put up obviously 30 if you wanted to. If they didn't get that third down there by Najee, then you would have kicked a field goal and gotten to 30 for another time this season. So yeah, the Browns, they're a better team than are given credit for, despite the record. But Pittsburgh getting revenge and getting the victory.
Let's see. This team now has a league high. What was the stat that you had on this years ago about Super Bowl worthy takeaway?
25, I think 20 or 25. The stat had changed a little bit. There was some evolution to it.
Right. But the Steelers now lead the NFL with 28 total takeaways. They are plus 17 in the net differential. They are tied with the Buffalo Bills for the league lead in net differential and obviously lead in takeaways. And they only have 11 total giveaways on the season, which is obviously towards the better side of the league.
And that is such a huge stat, Dave. To be plus 17 in turnover differential would be the team's best mark since 2010. Their last Super Bowl appearing team, it would be, I think, their best mark tying 2010 since like 1972. The all-time record is to be plus 23, and so they could even challenge that potentially with a couple of good repeated performances going forward. So it is such an obvious stat, but you just look at the turnover margin, and the teams at the top are the good teams, and the teams at the bottom are the worst teams in football. The worst team in football in turnover differential are the Raiders at minus 17. Pittsburgh is plus 17, so a 34 turnover gulf between those two sides. The Raiders are obviously, their season's over. Pittsburgh continues. So very obvious stat, but a real key one for sure.
And if you're not getting the sacks like this team hasn't up, and well, they obviously had 3 yesterday, which is good. But if you're not getting the sacks, you'd much rather have the takeaway than a sack anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah, for sure. But Pittsburgh, they're number 10 offense still, number 5 defense, and they're right away from being like the number 2 scoring defense. Denver's at 18, The Lions are at 18. The Eagles are at 18. Pittsburgh's at 18.3. The Chargers lead the league at 15.9. But Pittsburgh, top 5 defense, top 10 scoring offense, great special teams, tied for the best turnover margin. That's how you get to be 10-3.
All right, brother Alex, what did we miss?
Playoff scenarios. We can finally talk about playoff clinching scenarios for week number 15. Simple paths for Pittsburgh here. If they beat the Eagles, they clinch the playoffs. If they don't beat the Eagles and the Dolphins lose or tie, and the Colts, I think both teams have to lose or tie, correct?
Right.
If both those things occur, then Pittsburgh will also clinch the playoffs, even in a loss. And to win the AFC North, Dave, Pittsburgh has to do just one thing: beat the Ravens in week 16. If they can do that, they will have wrapped up the AFC North no matter what happens in their other games against the Eagles this weekend, against the Chiefs or the Bengals. Beat the Ravens, and you get to wear those hats and T-shirts.
I believe, too, if they tie the Eagles, they clinch a playoff spot, right?
Okay. Yeah, I always forget that part yet. Win or tie the Eagles. Correct.
All right. So hopefully we'll be celebrating a clinch of the playoffs. They're like a 99 or 98.9% or something chance. But yeah, they should definitely get. Look, this is a good team. This is a dangerous team. This is a team that, once again, I think matches up. I mean, you've had people like Bill Cowher come out, and several more people jumping on saying this is a team that I probably wouldn't want to play in the playoffs. I think this team, you don't want to look past the Eagles, obviously, but I am excited for the Christmas game against the Chiefs, because I think the Steelers match up very well against this Chiefs team. I think that once again, the one team that I am concerned about would be the Bills, the way that they can move the football and score. That kind of worries me. But everybody else in the AFC that's expected to be in the playoffs, they match up good against. So if you get a home playoff game, and even if it's the Ravens or the Chargers or the Texans or what, I mean, it feels like I've never been this. I can't remember the last time I've been this optimistic about a Steelers team. It's obviously been a while, but they have made believers out of me. The defense, I think, at times could obviously play better, but it comes down to how many points that you're allowing, and they're doing good in that category. This team's getting explosive plays on the offensive side. They're not turning the football over. They're getting fairly consistent quarterback play, cognizant quarterback play. They're running the football more times than not well. Even with the receiver core that they have, they're getting the job done. So, and they're getting healthy, it seems, at the right time. We'll see what happens with Ogunjobi and Pickens, obviously, the status of him this week. But if you're a Steelers fan right now, and yeah, they had an ugly loss a couple of weeks ago to the Browns, but if you look back at a couple of the other losses, I mean, this is a team that he could have even a couple more wins than they have right now. So, I think you have to be a very optimistic person about this Steelers team at this point right now, going into week 15, as to their ability to not only win a playoff game, but do more than that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the expectations, and the media's gonna talk about it a lot, Dave, but we're gonna learn a lot about the Steelers team next couple of weeks. You got some real contender matchups at Philadelphia, at Baltimore, and then hosting the Chiefs on Christmas Day. And so this will be a really good litmus test and kind of playoff preview, because you're playing 3 playoff teams your next 4 games.
Yeah, and within 11 days on top of it here. So excited, man. I haven't been this excited in a while.
But if they lose and they struggle over the stretch, then I know the narrative will be, well, they beat up on the Browns and the Bengals, and they can't beat these really quality teams. They had a squeaky win over the Ravens. I mean, that's just the way the narrative will go. But either way, putting that aside, this will show a lot about this Pittsburgh Steelers team.
And look, even if they drop a couple of these games, they are good tests to let them know where they are and what they need to work on against some of these better teams too. And they're going to be in the playoffs. So, At least you did what you were supposed to do up until this point. We talked about the early part of the schedule and how they were supposed to win games in the first half, and they did. And we talked about this AFC North portion of the schedule being crucial. They went 3-1 in this stretch, and then the final part of the schedule obviously tough as well. So the key thing is they should be in the playoffs, and they will be able to test what kind of team they are over the course of because look, even that last game against the Bengals is going to be tough.
Sure, good point. Yeah, if you can go 2-1 these next 3 games, fantastic. I mean, I think it's probably asking too much to sweep these next 3 games. If you do, then yeah, we're really talking Super Bowl contender at that point. But if you can go 2-1, and then the Bengals game really kind of doesn't. Well, it may matter for seeding, but putting that one aside, just go 2-1 these next 3 games, and you're in a really, really good place.
You don't want to talk about potential losses, but I mean, if they were to, let's see, their next 2 games against Philly and Baltimore, right?
Correct. Yep.
If they lost both those, and let's say the Chiefs won both of their next 2 games, would it even matter for the Chiefs in that game? I guess it depends on Buffalo.
Yeah, that's too much math there. If you could only beat one of these next 3 teams, if I just give you the hypothetical, you could only get a victory over one of these 3 teams, who would you want that win against?
Baltimore.
Yeah, obviously that clinches the division, so that's an easy one. Would you say Kansas City just to say, hey, we beat Patrick Mahomes, we've shown we can hand the Chiefs, who nobody else can really seem to hand a loss to besides the Bills this year? Yes, the Chiefs play a bunch of close games, and they're not who they've been in the past, but they still find ways to win. We can prove we can beat Baltimore because we beat them earlier this year, even if you lose to them in Week 16, which is at their place. We beat the Chiefs. We finally kind of got that monkey off our back. Do you see the value in that?
I still think that you want this division, so you ensure a home game, right? So
sure, but even if you beat Kansas City and you beat the
Bengals, but my contention
Ravens,
is you match up well against the Chiefs anyway, and if you can, and the playoffs are probably going to go through them anyway. So if you can get if you can take care of business in the rematch.
Yeah, but if you lose to Kansas City, then you're basically, well, I mean, I guess if you're losing to the next 3, then you're going to play on the road probably no matter what against Kansas City. But yeah, obviously Baltimore's the right choice, I would surmise, because of the clinching the AFC North. But I do want to show that they can at least beat the Chiefs, because you talk about, I still will never discount Kansas City and their ability to turn things on, especially come the postseason. And they win close games like Pittsburgh. It's really interesting. They can always find ways to dig deep, and they won a crazy one yesterday with a doink from former Steelers kicker Matthew Wright. So Pittsburgh and Kansas City are kind of built in the same way in the moment in terms of great defense and keeping scores down and winning late and making those final plays. I really am excited to see how Pittsburgh matches up in that Week 17 Christmas Day game.
All right. Shall we get to some of the email machine here?
Well, in a second, just really quickly, what are you looking for from Hard Knocks on Tuesday? We'll, of course, recap it for the Wednesday show. It really, like I said last week, should be Steelers-centric because the Ravens are on a bye. The Bengals don't play until tonight, so it's going to be too hard for the NFL Films or HBO, whoever, to turn things around. So it's going to be really just a Steelers-Browns hour episode.
It's good that they beat the Browns, so there'll be some positivity involved in that. It should be Steelers centric with the Ravens off and the Bengals playing tonight. I wonder how much Pickens stuff we'll get. I'm interested to see that. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of you'll have a full post to write.
Yeah, it'll be. I want to know what the matchups and the challenges and maybe some stuff on Benton. Remember in the first Hard Knocks, right, he spoke before the Bengals game, talked about the hard week that he had, and so there might be a good storyline there. But certainly should be interesting. So just to note, Dave, Pittsburgh is out of the gauntlet. They're out of the 4 straight AFC North games, which was the quirk to the schedule, which has rarely been done before. Their latest start to ever begin divisional play in a single season. They went 3-1 through it. And yeah, the Browns and the Bengals are not who we thought they would be at the start of the season, but they're still competitive teams. And the Browns are better with Winston. and the Bengals are still a challenge because of Burrow and the offense and weapons that they have. And so you went 3-1 through that stretch. Your only loss in that short week on the road at Cleveland in the snow. So kudos to Pittsburgh for that. Their streak of non-losing seasons in the division continues. Their last one came in 2009. That remains the NFL's longest active streak. And so Pittsburgh taking care of divisional ball. That's what you focus on when you start a season. Like, we want to win the division. How do we win the division? We got to beat our divisional opponents. And Pittsburgh continues to do that better than any other team in the AFC North. It's why they have been so consistent and always in the hunt.
Yeah, we say that every year. What you do in division matters. Obviously, they got to. We said they're probably going to need to go at least 4-2 within the division to win it. They got a good chance to do that. They got a good chance to go 5-1 in the division at this point. But obviously, if you get the next win against Baltimore, you're going to win the division regardless of what you do in the finale against the Bengals there. So, as Mike Thomas says, our business is winning.
Yeah, and it's just really impressive because those are 4 straight tough physical games. There's some short weeks. There's some road games in there, some tough environments. And for Pittsburgh to come out 3-1, not that this is a great comparison, but what did the Bears do their last 3 games? They lost. Well, did they play 4 straight divisional games? They didn't play one yesterday. I know they lost and got blown up by the Niners, but just go with me for a second.
Let's see there. They played Green Bay, Minnesota, and the Lions right in a row starting in week 11. They lost all 3 of them.
Okay. I know, again, this is not a great comparison because the Bears are not a good team, but they lost to the Packers by 1. They lost to the Vikings by 3 in overtime, and they lost to the Lions on 3 in that crazy Thanksgiving game where Eberflus got fired. So just to say, I make that point to say there's another team that just played a bunch of divisional games in a row and a weird quirk in their schedule. They lost 3 close ones. Pittsburgh, I would just say overall 1-3. Well, they won 4. Well, they won 3 games. The Browns game wasn't super close yesterday, but overall, you just see a team like Pittsburgh handle business in a division in tough, physical, close games. On the other end, a team like Chicago dropped 3 straight close divisional games. That's why the Bears have turmoil and struggle and are not making the playoffs, and that's why Pittsburgh is. So that's just kind of a comparison that comes to mind because the Bears' schedule is kind of similar to how Pittsburgh's got set up this year.
All right.
Anyway, probably not a good comparison, but just it was always in my head because the Bears didn't start divisional play until week 11 like Pittsburgh. They played 3 straight divisional games, and so I just had a kind of a loose comparison always in my head. Anyway, that rant aside, Dave, let's get to some emails and close out today's show.
All right, let's start with Kevin in. Writes in a couple of weeks back, Alex mentioned some of the issues this team has demonstrated with time management, especially as to when the opponent had the ball. I agree, and I would add another, wasting tens of seconds per play in the last minute of halves by refusing to use the remaining timeouts. He says it seems to be that when you're down to 50 seconds and have 60 to 70 yards to go, you need to do one of the following: take chances on big shots, go to the outside and either get incompletions or stop the clock by completing and getting out of bounds. 3, when you're stuck needing a first down, you take what you can and take the timeout. He says at least 3 times recently we did the following instead. On an early down, threw across the middle and completed a pass that got only a small part of the way down the field and then tried to hurry up the next play instead of taking a timeout, thereby burning tens of seconds and getting little or nothing from the remaining timeouts. I think it was at the end of each half at the Browns and again at the end of the first half at home against the Browns. Very frustrating. So he's taking some issue with Tomlin clock management, and I understand a little bit of it.
Yeah, certainly, as he referenced, I was critical of him a couple weeks ago, but for whatever it's worth, and this is not to really make it okay, but there's a lot of head coaches that struggled. You see Sean McDermott yesterday. What a botched ending that was to that crazy loss against the Rams. And so there's been a lot of coaches that struggle. I'm not sure how many good clock management coaches are there in the NFL right now. Andy Reid, and are there any others we can name?
Oh, I'd have to go through the list.
Yeah, but just even just conventionally off the top of your head, who are known, who has the reputation of being good situational?
Is it McVay and Shanahan?
Yeah, probably. It's probably that tree, and then Reed. but there aren't many is the point. So not to excuse it, and those things can certainly be costly. Talk about playoffs and close games, but just want to highlight that I think a lot of fan bases talk about clock management and issues that pop up like Pittsburgh.
All right, Deshaun Campbell says, "Sup guys? First, are we sure Pickens' absent wasn't stem from Mike Tomlin saying he needs to grow up fast? Basically, a quiet one-game suspension. Also, what's the background of Steelers and Renegade? How did this start, and why do fans get so pumped up? I've obviously never been to a home Steelers game, so it's all over TikTok." Deshaun writes. I think there's a great documentary on it, right? On Starter Renegade against the Browns several years ago, and you can research that out on Deshaun several years ago on the whole Renegade history and all like that. And look, it just it. I've never been to a Steelers home game, so I haven't seen it. But I mean, you obviously know what a big difference that is. The fans feed off of it, the players feed off of it. All of it there. So go down a rabbit hole and find that video on the birth of Renegade or whatever they call that. And that'll answer that, Deshaun. And we addressed the Pickens thing earlier in the show there. I mean, I can understand why, or somewhat understand why people got the tinfoil hat on, but this seems like a legitimate hamstring injury with Pickens.
Yeah, to me, all the signs point to that. Adam Schefter's reporting that he woke up sore on Friday, and that's why he was limited Friday. So, not seeing any evidence to the contrary. If it exists, then I'll look at it. And yeah, Renegade, a weapon. And Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, they got to know when Renegade gets played. They thought it was going to come out like at the start of the fourth quarter or something, mid-drive when the Browns were down near the red zone. That's not when Renegade gets played. It doesn't happen mid-drive. Romo and Nantz, come on now.
They had me fooled.
Yeah,
I thought they had heard the beginning of it or something.
Yeah. No, those are always start of drive type stuff.
All right. Jeff Berg writes in, "Happy Victory Monday. Is it probable that Boswell can't kick into the end zone on a regular basis? I've seen too many short kickoffs return past the 30 this season. It seems that the simple adjustment to solve this issue would be to instruct the kicker to kick the ball deep into the end zone. Since this isn't occurring on most kickoffs by Bos, should we assume he's just unable to kick that far? Is it whether other kickers are able to kick it deep? He's wondering about the kickoffs and Boz not kicking every one of them out of the end zone."
His touchback rate is 60% this year. He had 100%. No, he had 83% yesterday. I think it was only one return, right? And then after Ford, I think had that big run back. I think the next one got booted into the end zone. So Boswell certainly has the leg. It's a game plan thing based on how much confidence you have in your return game. How much your evaluation of their return game or your coverage game, I should say, Pittsburgh's strength of their coverage game versus the return game, but yeah, Boswell has a leg, and after the Ford run back, the next couple of kicks for Boswell, the rest of the game, I think were all touchbacks. So yeah, they just adjusted and then booted the ball after that big return.
All right, Mark Urbaniak writes in, "Hey, David Ox, you guys just keep getting better. 2 questions. Don't you think it is a little unfair to have both of our short weeks coming off of Baltimore? Yeah, you're not going to, you ain't got to twist my arm when it comes to that. Yeah, I mean, you look at four division games right in a row, the 3 games in 11 days, the short weeks coming off of Baltimore. Yeah, that feels better not see it again for a little while.
Yeah, it sucks. It's not fair, but the schedule's been out since May. Nothing we can do about that. The upside to the next short week will be Pittsburgh being at home for that Chiefs game, so they won't have to at least travel and make a short week even shorter by leaving the night before. Kansas City will have that additional stress. But yeah, not ideal, but it's the hand you're dealt, and no use complaining about it.
Question for Alex: what would Danny Smith have to do to get into the Hall of Fame?
Buy a ticket, I think. Yeah. That's about the only way. As much as I love Danny Smith, there's no other way he's going to get in the Hall of Fame. He'll be in my personal Hall of Fame, though, and that matters much, much less.
Our buddy George O'Donnery back in here. Hi, guys. Is it possible that Cam Hayward is 5th all-time leader for the Steelers in passes defended? 5th in all-time is fifth all-time leader for the Steelers in pass defended. I think he is likely to pass Rod Woodson. If so, when he gets into the Hall of Fame, I think he will be second only to Troy Polamalu in the pass defense stat. I bring this up as I think pass defense stat, like forced fumble stat for James Harrison, might be a hidden extra stat that helped polish off Cam Hayward's Hall of Fame resume. P.S. I believe the biggest difference in today's game and the last game against the Browns was the plays on fourth down. Along those lines, I think the Steelers' best fourth down play this season are the Waitman to Skowronek punts. Yeah, without a doubt. Pass defense.
Well,
Franchise.
I'm pulling up the stats now. PFR has them tracked, since 1999. I don't know about other teams and maybe their individual scoring, but I'm just looking at PFR. They have Hayward down for 55. That is seventh in recorded team history, but I don't even see Rod Woodson on here because he was playing before that time, obviously. But Hayward has a bunch of them. I don't know where he ranks in relation to Rod Woodson. I don't see Hayward being near the top to lead the Steelers, according to PFR. Ike Taylor had 134 pass deflections, pass defense in his Steelers career. So Hayward is not close to that mark.
All right. Thanks, George. B writes in, just got to ask, when are you going to see an Alex Kozora profile pic change on Twitter? Although iconic, I need to see my guy repping some Steelers gear. So he's tired of your Key West avatar.
I did not expect to get that question here on this Monday. It's honestly one of those things that I have to be, and it's one of those kind of just weird aspects of the job in all the best possible ways. But I have to be
wear Steelers gear anymore, do you?
Well, yeah. I honestly don't wear it a ton. I have some, but I think people know that I like the Steelers and root for the Steelers without having to put on the jersey. But I have to actually be strategic when I change the avatar because it throws so many people off. And that happens to me too. When people change their avatars, and like it's been one for a long time, I always kind of have to catch myself and go, "Who is this person?" The time I changed it to that Key West photo, I specifically and deliberately waited until after training camp because I knew if I did it before training camp, people would not recognize me as often before my training camp tweets, and so I had to wait for that. And once I changed it, I got so much pushback. I got like dozens of tweets like, "Why did you change it? We don't know who you are anymore." Like people frustrated by it. And so I'm actually nervous to do that because I will get some comments about it. It's one of the craziest parts of the job. And so I'll change mine when Dave changes his. I don't think Dave is changing his profile pic for a long time.
You are the Danny Smith of strategery there of Twitter avatars.
Have you ever had a different profile photo? Has it always been just the Steelers?
I don't think I have.
I think you just said it in 2008 you joined, and that's just been the logo.
If I changed it, I don't remember it.
Yeah, which honestly, there's value in that. There's value in people just seeing the photo without even seeing your name yet, and just doing that as a
brand recognition.
Honestly, yeah. So we're gonna stick to where we're at.
All right, Alex. I think we're coming up on about damn near hour 45 minutes, something like that here. So I think we whipped this one up pretty good here. We will watch the All-22. The Steelers are off. The players are off again Monday and Tuesday. Mike Tomlin will hold his press conference on Tuesday. First injury report of this week will be Wednesday. Alex and I'll be back Wednesday morning to recap the All-22. Start looking ahead to we'll recap what Mike Tomlin has to say. Start looking ahead to the Eagles game. All that usual stuff there. So should be a fun couple of days for us because not having to cover the Steelers players, get to dive into the tape. A lot of great stuff up on Steelers Depot as usual. And we invite everybody to stop by and read the content we have up on there. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Alex, I enjoyed it. Happy Monday, everybody. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.